Currently on Kickstarter. So we're going to hang out for a few minutes and wait for some people to jump on and join us, and then we'll get going. So hang tight. All right. And now I'm going to share it. Boop, boop, boop. So I did not realize until yesterday that I make a lot of like weird sounds and voices during these. Like, had no idea. So sorry about that.
It'll probably all happen. Do. So
right, like I had no idea. And someone had mentioned a couple nights ago that like, oh, my kids love your voices and your sounds. And I was like, what are they talking about? I don't know. And then I watched my video last night and I was like, oh, I do that.
But that's part of the
show. Right? Like, it just, people accept it. I'm a little quirky. I say and do weird things. It's fine. I'm being attacked by my cat right now. All right. So, all right. So we have Woodward here. Woodward, how about you go give a little wave so they know who's who? There we go. And Carl. And Muncie. And Muncie and Carl in Mexico City, which is pretty awesome. And Wood is over in Houston, and I'm in delightful, snowy Northwest Ohio. I love the internet because we can do this. We can all like merge together on totally different areas and talk at the same time and share a feed. It's pretty awesome. Hi, Alex. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Okay, so Cybermancy. How did you guys come up with this game? Like, it's some pretty cool. So obviously Brian and I played it and I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, kind of like adding some computery twists into it. And I was like, how'd they come up with this?
We were actually talking about that this morning. That was not the original idea. My original idea was it was just going to be a straight zombies versus humans game.
Okay.
And Woody came up with the idea that we should have different factions that would be able to expand on the game, different kinds of tribes of warriors. But it didn't really make sense to have, dinosaurs fighting robots. It was like, in what world would that work? So we just
that sounds awesome, though.
Well, yeah, but it only makes sense if you're talking about a computer because you can put anything. You can program any avatars into a computer, and that's how we came with the idea that it's going to be a virtual battle. People are going to be fighting inside a computer, not really, not real creatures. So that was how the game came, and I came up with the name Cybermancy, meaning doing magic with computers.
That's awesome. What was your role in the game, Carl?
I'm the designer.
Okay, very cool. And then Muncie, what is your part in the game?
Well, aside from being the creator's daughter,
which is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to have.
I made her too. Well,
double win.
Yeah, my mom gets so mad when I introduce people to her. I'll be like, yeah, she made me. She's like, stop saying that. And I'm like, but it's funny.
So, I saw the idea come to life throughout the years, and I wanted to help them put it out into the world and help connect people with the awesome project that they were making. So I decided to come on as the social media manager, try to just engage with more people and bring Cybermancy to all those future Cybermancers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Wood, what do you do with the game?
I'm the project manager, so I kind of keep herding the cats to head in the right direction. And originally, I was the money behind it. So we
nice.
We actually do engineering work for a living. But I had retired back in 17, and we decided we still wanted to do something to stay busy. And so I asked Carl what he wanted to do, and he said, let's make games. I said, you're an expert at that. Let's do that. So
I love it. That's like a fun little story of how it kind of came to be. So you guys have been working on Cybermancy since 2017?
Well, it was sort of a hobby for the first year and a half, and then got serious for the final year and a half. But then last year was a very, very busy year because we picked up another contract I opened the engineering business again for various reasons. So all of these guys also work for the engineering company. So we were doing two things at once. So everybody was very, very busy.
I'm very busy and spending a lot of time together. I love it.
We finally went to a completely disconnected architecture now. So we don't actually have to be in the same office anymore. For years, we ran a big office with all of the employees in the office. And now everybody works from their home, which the employees absolutely love.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I just had my first experience with working from home. It's not for me. I'm too artsy-fartsy, creative, spacey type. Mm-hmm. We'll go that route. Yeah.
Okay.
It was not for me, but that's pretty awesome. I love it. Okay. So I guess that answers like my next two questions. When did this start? How did you all come together? There we go. So I'm guessing you guys met through engineering?
Carl's my brother.
Okay, I didn't know if that was like real or if it was like so my friends are starting to have kids and they call me Auntie Kara, but I'm not a real aunt. So I was like, is this like a real relationship or like friendship relationship?
He's my older brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I love it. So family affair. Yeah. Are any other family members working on the project?
My son works as our web guy. And all around welfare as well.
I love it. That's cool. That's very cool. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard working with Brian. I don't know if I could do it with like my siblings and then our offspring, but good for you guys. That's props all around. That's awesome. I love it.
And of course, a big shout out to our good friend Wayne, who is pretty much an honorary member of this See Forever family already.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, Wayne. You've been adopted by the family. Look, he just commented something. I'm guessing this is him, maybe?
That's him.
All right. Pretty awesome seeing family work together having fun. I was like, Wayne, and I know this face. I feel like I've been talking to him. And I was like, show it. That's awesome. Very cool. So I've got a couple of more questions then. So were there ever any like unique issue you guys would have come across by being family members working together on a project?
I think it was a little bit difficult at the beginning because my background is in education. I worked, when I first came to Mexico for the first 20 some years, I worked in education. I was a teacher and then I was a teacher trainer. And then I ended up being a trainer. I trained the people who trained the teachers. Mm-hmm. So in 2008, when the economy kind of collapsed, the company I worked for decided that was a good opportunity for them to cut everybody's pay and remove their benefits because, what are you going to do? So that was when Wood offered me a job. And at the beginning, it was really difficult because I don't really have a technical background the way he does. He's a real whiz at engineering and computers and that sort of thing. And so it was a bit difficult at the beginning, just me getting my feet under me as far as the work goes. But within a couple of years, I think we had worked out all the kinks, and we had been working together now since 2009, so 11 years.
That's awesome. Was it difficult pulling in, Muncie, you joined them, Would your son joined in? Was that hard bringing in the kids?
No, it was, I originally hired Adam over the summer to do his first job for us as a draftsman. I'm going to preface this by saying family is incredibly important to all of us. And I didn't like what was happening to Carl, so I decided that I could make his life a lot better. And so for the first 3 or 4 months, I just said, all right, read books so that you can understand what it is that we do. And so it took him a while to get his feet wet. But he ended up basically being a replacement for me as far as programming. So he taught himself programming. So he ended up taking a great deal of the burden off of me because we use my software that I wrote to do all the engineering work that we do. And Carl ended up doing all the support work and all of the major programming for it for, 5 years through one of our biggest projects. Wayne's also been with me for 11 years now, 10 years.
I feel like you guys are all just really, really smart.
Well, maybe so.
Really smart people.
I used to think so, but the more time goes by, I realize, yeah, not so much.
Yeah. But to answer your question, it wasn't a hard decision at all. We just brought Monty on in the last month. There's a whole host of reasons on why it took us so long to do it, but it was one of those duh moments when she finally offered to us, hey, you guys are struggling with this. Maybe I could help. And we were like, oh, why didn't we think of this before?
It was on the day that we shot the video for our Kickstarter. Woody had come down for the filming, and Monty was there with her boyfriend, and they were helping out with setting up the lights and doing you know how the whole procedure goes.
Yeah.
And she said, I have some experience in social media and stuff, and we both just face palmed and went, why didn't we think of this months ago?
Oh.
That's awesome. Muncie, did you think about it sooner, being like, hey, I can help you with this? Or was it just spur of the moment when you were like, nope, I can do this?
I think a little bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I think from the very start, my brain just started branching out into a million ideas and how I could help. But of course, I wasn't directly involved from the beginning. So I just respected their space and let them do their own thing. And once I saw how big this was getting and how little engagement they were getting, I said, you know what, we need to get it out to more people because this is awesome. And I believe in this great thing that you've made. So I just tried to do my best. And of course, it's still an ongoing process, but I think it was a good idea to bring in yet another family member to the mix.
I love it. It sounds like you guys all work really well together and everyone has some specific skill sets that they can bring to the table to help you guys reach that goal. And that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you
I'm like a little jelly belly because my sisters would never do this with me. They'd be like, no, you're the annoying one. I'll be like, I know.
Yeah, it's funny because Wood is, as you mentioned, he's the project manager. So he's very nuts and bolts, get things done. And I'm more of the artsy, creative kind. It's like, well, we get done when it gets... No, that doesn't work, when you're trying to get a project. But he's the one saying, you got this deadline, you have this deadline. And then, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
It really does take a whole bunch of different kinds of personalities because even though I created the game, if it hadn't been for Woody, it wouldn't have become an actual product. It wouldn't have become something that we can share with people. It just would have been this thing that I did, but it wouldn't have been an actual thing that we could share. So it's been really easy in that sense because everybody does have their own niche and their own part that they play. Wayne, for example, is amazing. He's our like production, manufacturing. He does everything related to getting the game actually created and packaged and sent out. And I just look at that stuff and I just go, I just can't believe that he's able to do something that for me just seems.
He did a great job. Like, how visually appealing and cool is this? When we opened the box, I was like, oh, that looks awesome. So, dude, Wayne, good job, man. That looks awesome.
Are we supposed to be answering? Hey, Kara, are we supposed to be answering questions from the people on the site?
That's Brian's question, and I was going to get to that when we.
Sorry. Okay.
No, that's all right. If you see a question over there that you want to answer, feel free. Otherwise, I'll pop them up when I'm ready for it. Brian's just like, Brian's jumping the ball, being Brian. So, how did you decide this was the game? Like, that this was like the style of game you wanted to do and the mechanics you wanted to do? How did that happen?
I've always been somebody who really likes card games. And in particular, I was really taken with Hearthstone. I don't know if you've played Hearthstone.
I have not. I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
Yeah, it's an online version of a collectible card game where it's all done digitally, and it's an amazing game. It's just really, really fun, but it has a lot of random things that happen, which are really entertaining if you're watching it live. If you're on Twitch or something and watching people play, these random things that happen are really fun and entertaining. But if you're playing the game, it can be a little bit frustrating. So I wanted to do something kind of in that style, but without as much randomness.
Okay.
So that people could feel like when they're making a choice to play a card or not play a card, or attack or not attack, every choice matters because there's not going to be some random thing that's going to happen that's going to win you or lose you the game. And that was the seed of it. And then I wanted to give people more choices, which is when I came up with the idea of the two summoning powers. In Hearthstone, for example, you only have one kind of mana that you use to summon. So it's very easy, but it's also very, very linear. It happens, you get one mana and then two. And in our game, for example, you have to make a choice. Which one do I advance? Do I want to do this next turn, this next turn? It depends on the cards you have. So that was the genesis of the project. I wanted to make a card game that gave me the same feel as like Hearthstone, but be our own thing and be less random and more strategic.
I love that. I want to pop this comment up because it made me so happy. Alex wrote that Cybermancy is the game of the year, which just makes me real happy. And then Brian says that he loves Hearthstone but switched back to Magic. So I was wondering, is Magic something that you've enjoyed over the years, and did that influence you?
Yeah, it's really funny because when Magic first came out, I played it on the computer a little bit. I didn't play it so much live, and it's become so complicated now. We were talking about that this morning. It's like Hearthstone compared to Magic is actually very simple. It's very straightforward, and it doesn't have any of the complexity of the game. And then Magic now has gotten to the point where things are just so complex. I look at it and I go, I can't even understand what's going on. We've actually talked quite a bit about Magic because I haven't played it in a very long time, but Woody plays it with his son. And his son is really into it. And I think that Hearthstone was inspired by Magic. I think they simplified it. So then we were inspired by Hearthstone and complicated it a little bit. So we're kind of in between the two, I think.
There you go. As someone who hasn't played either of those, I found Cybermancy once, the hard part for me was knowing when I could move a card up and then when I could use it. But once I figured that out, I was like, oh, this game is really fun. And I get it. And then for someone who doesn't play Magic or Hearthstone, Magic is very intimidating. I feel like this is a way easier thing to understand. And I appreciated that. So thank you. Good job.
Hey, Kara, if I may, you asked how we came up with this particular game.
Yeah.
In 2017, I asked Carl to give me a bunch of ideas for games to pitch to me, so to decide which one we were going to make. And this idea was the one that came out on top as being the game that we wanted to play. There were some others that I think that might have been easier to make and would have been a lot easier to sell, but this was the game that we wanted to make. This was the game that we actually want to play.
There you go. I love that. That's awesome. So I guess that kind of leads into the question that Brian had asked earlier. What type of expansions and new abilities are you guys looking forward to?
Well, we actually already have 6 complete factions that I've designed and created the cards for. So when the base game finally gets manufactured and put out, we'll have 4 in the pipeline. And then beyond that, I have all kinds of ideas for different things. For example, one of the ones that Woody's most excited about was the dinosaurs. Their special ability is going to be when they can ram. If you've played the humans, you know that they can put a lot of people on the front line and block you from attacking, and the dinosaurs will push them back.
I love that idea.
The aliens, which are another faction that we'll be creating, they have, at the moment of death, they have a toxic spray, so they can damage you and the other creatures around you. So that's really annoying. And we also have robots. Let's see, we have Cthulhu creatures. That's my personal favorite. And what else? Robots.
Celestials and demons.
Oh yes, celestials and demons.
That sounds really awesome. Celestial and demons. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, actually, that was Woody's idea, to have different factions. He said that, as I said, my original idea was just to have a straight undead and humans. It was going to be sort of like the ultimate one box card game. And Woody said, well, why do we have to limit ourselves just to that? So that encouraged me to come up with different factions and different powers, and that was actually kind of a lot of fun because I could say, okay, what else could they do? Because the humans, for example, have a special power of promote. They can push a creature up into the front line. The undead can create crawlers. They die and then they have another creature. So that really pushed me creatively to come up with other ideas for different kinds of factions. And like I said, we have at least 6 more in the pipeline.
That's pretty cool. that you like already have a plan? So do you think that once, Cybermancy is out there, people have it, will you then go to Kickstarter again with those expansions?
Maybe. I don't really know how appropriate Kickstarter is as a platform for something that's just basically a deck of cards. But I mean, we would have to see how the original game did. But I think it's possible. The cool thing about it is once you have the base game, it's very, very simple then to expand it because it's just a deck of cards because each of the tribes or each of the factions is just 50 cards. And that makes it, from a manufacturing standpoint, it's pretty easy to just create a deck of cards. The real challenge for us in terms of creating the decks is getting the artwork because you have to have an individual piece of artwork for every card. And that's very time consuming. That was the biggest challenge, I think, for us from the production standpoint, was finding artists to produce images for each card because we wanted each one to be different.
So did you go with a different artist for each cards or a set of cards, or did you have the same artist?
Well, that was the original idea. We want to have a different artist. If you see the humans, they have a very different feeling than the undead. They're almost kind of like oil paintings, and they're more realistic and a little bit more austere. And the undead are a little bit goofier, a little more cartoony. And we had some issues where some of the artists that we hired weren't able to complete some of the sets, but some of the other artists stepped in. So for the undead and for the humans, yes, those are separate artists. One artist did the complete set of cards, but for the others,
people can see what we're talking about. Like this is Bow Compost, and like just look at how it's so detailed, which I love, and it's so specific. Like when I was going through the art, I was like, this is solid. And I wouldn't have guessed that it was different artists doing each thing because it kind of carried a thread through it that made it seem like it was the same artist. So that was really cool that you found people that could do that. That's awesome. How many different artists did you guys end up working with?
5. No, 7.
And how did you find your artists?
There's an online site called Upwork.
Okay.
And it's basically a place to connect with people that do book editing or artists or anything that you might be able to do electronically by contract. And we had originally struggled with finding artists here in the States that were willing to work for what I considered a reasonable price. They wanted $250 or $300 a card, and I said, this would be just entirely too expensive to build this game if we can't bring that price down. And so, getting onto Upwork, a friend of mine had told me about it. She actually does book editing on Upwork, and suggested that I give it a try. Put it out there, and we had 50 or 60 responses within about 8 hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. I can't say enough good about Upwork. It's expensive to use. It costs the artist 5%, and it costs us 2.5% of the total cost of the contract. But it certainly is a professionally done, an easy way for us to manage the collection of that art. There's escrow accounts that are associated with it, and you don't release the money until you're happy with it. And then they've got this whole infrastructure for supplying that information back and forth. It's really a great site.
That's awesome. We've always used Fiverr. I've never heard of the one that you guys are using, so we'll have to keep that in mind for later. Sounds pretty awesome. A question that we had missed that I wanted to make sure that I went back to. Adam asked, what were the other games? So back in 2017, when Carl, you were pitching to Woody, what were some of those other games that you were thinking about?
Without going into too much detail, they were the kind of they were my ideas. For example, a worker placement game, or a deck building game, or different mechanics that people have used, but with my own kind of spin on them. So, without getting into too much detail, one was going to be an Old West game. One was going to be on a spaceship with an intruder on the ship. There are games that have come out since I pitched those ideas to Wood that are very similar. So we may have to revisit some of those ideas, but I don't think we have any worries about moving forward, about having ideas for other games. I think we'll be good.
So there are going to be other things in the future.
Depending on how well Cybermancy does, yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have something that you're already leaning towards as your next game?
Me personally, what I'd like to work on is the deck building game that I've had an idea. I had an idea about for a while, but Woody's son Adam, my nephew, is also working on a game, and it's starting to look pretty amazing. I mean, considering how young he is, I was just blown away by how sophisticated and how intricate the game was. And that's in progress right now. He's working on that. So depending on how far he gets, that might end up being our next game, which I think
that's
is really
awesome.
exciting.
That's awesome. I love it. Like that you guys are willing to look at other cards and all that stuff. Here we go. This is a good one. So Alex asked, how did you choose the names of each card? Because some of them are very punny. So Tom Brainy was one that cracked me up. There's another one that really cracks me up. So how did you guys come up with those?
I just had to sit down and come up with 50 characters for each of the factions. For the humans, it was not that difficult because what I wanted to do, almost all of the human cards are actual people from history. So I just did research on, warriors and fighters from the past. And the challenge was I wanted to make it balanced as far as gender goes. I didn't want it to just be guys. So I tried to have an equal number of male and female characters. And then I tried to draw from as broad a variety of different cultures as I could. I didn't want it all just to be one thing. So you'll notice that there are men and women from all times, all periods of history, all different. There you go.
We've got Calamity Jane and Mulan, which I noticed that there was just like everybody. It's like it's like the whole world is involved in this fight, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
and
I
love
the greatest
it.
warriors
Very cool.
of history from all different countries.
Yes.
And almost all of them are real people. The only ones that are not are the prehistoric characters because obviously we don't have any.
We could pretend that we know, but we will never really know about those great warriors.
I'm sure there were people that fought back then, so I just created some characters that seemed to fit that mold. And then for the undead characters, that was a lot of fun because I just had to, like you said, to come up with things that seemed funny and amusing, but also they had to be a little bit obvious about what they were. An undead football player, it has to be obvious that he's an undead football player. Some of them were more successful than others. We realized when I was writing the color commentary for them that some of them weren't as obvious as others. But I wrote color commentary for all of them that makes it clear what they are. An undead gunslinger, an undead mage.
Yes.
So,
which I loved. So this one also cracks me up. So I had to find this one. Every time that Brian and I played, I always wanted to be the undead characters, and then I would stare at them before I played them just to really take it in because I'm like, these are awesome.
Kara, I wanted to say, Carl did that entirely on his own. He sat down in a flurry of activity in about 3 weeks, knocked out all of this work. It was the most amazing and prodigious feat I've ever witnessed of creativity. It just kept coming and kept coming. It was amazing. He did all of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was really something to watch.
Muncie, what's it like having such a creative dad?
It's inspiring and a little bit frustrating at times, to be honest. I think his brain is just wired so much differently than most people's, and it's a little bit hard to keep up with it sometimes, but I think there's a lot to be learned as well. Ever since I was little, I think, and I do remember his big interest in board games since, tried to introduce me to that world when I was about 10 years old with The War of the Ring. I don't think I was quite ready for that yet, but through the years, his creative juices got working, and he said, you know what, I'm going to find the perfect game for the family. And he just did it so much that we ended up with a big collection, and he's made big fans of everyone in the family. So I can definitely see how he's taking all the good and cool elements from all those games, and he's just constantly making stuff up in his head. So it's kind of a fun process.
That's awesome. And Diana says that you are a writer, composer, and a singer too, Carl.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what don't you do? You understand the engineering stuff, you're creative. What don't you do?
I'm not a visual artist. That was the biggest challenge for us. I can't draw to save my life. So that was the one thing that I knew that we weren't going to be able to do. I was able to do the creative stuff, invent things, but I wasn't going to be able to draw or create the creatures. So, like Woody mentioned, finding that site that allowed us to hook up with artists from all over the world was the key. So, yeah, I'm
that's pretty awesome.
I'm not a visual artist. I can't draw or paint, but I do play music and I do write fiction. So,
what instruments do you play?
Primarily the guitar. These days I play. Oh, I actually studied music at the university, which is kind of a left field thing to have happen, considering that I ended up working in education and then engineering. But when I was at the university, my orchestral instrument was the bassoon, but I also played the flute, the saxophone, I played the piano, and mostly these days I play the guitar. That's the most accessible instrument I have.
That's awesome. I play the trombone, so I always have to talk to people like, what instrument do you play? Let's talk about music. I love it. So Michael has asked, I don't know if this will let me show 2 questions. Nope. So Michael's first question for you guys is this your first game?
Yes, it is.
First
Which I knew that, but I wanted you to tell people. And then Michael asked, how long was the game in playtesting?
Well, that's a really interesting story because when Woody was mentioning how quickly I was able to do all this stuff, but the truth of the matter is the reason I was able to do it is he wrote a program that helped me design the cards. I mentioned that I wanted the cards to be balanced. I wanted them all to have, no card was going to be overpowered relative to another. They all have, their uses and their powers. And to do that, Woody wrote a program that basically, if I put in a value for its health or its attack or its special powers, it would calculate the values based on an algorithm that I developed. So using that program, I was able to make sure that every single card was completely balanced relative to each other card in the game. So that made the process go a lot faster. And additionally, he also programmed it so that we could play the game on the computer. So we did a lot of the play testing before we even had any cards or any physical components to use. We played it on the computer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was a real feat of engineering or of programming, I think, because before we even had anything like a prototype or physical components, we were playing it on the computer, and that helped us at the very beginning sand off a lot of the rough edges and find out a lot of things that didn't work. We found out it didn't really replace live play testing. I don't think there's any way to get around. You have to play. You have to play with human beings. But as a proof of concept and getting, the basics of it right, we probably got about 80% of the gameplay nailed down by playing it on the computer. And then we had to, of course, play it with real humans. And that's where a lot of the changes came when we were playing with actual people. They tell you things that a computer can't find out.
Exactly. So Brian wanted to know, would we design this program or did you find it?
No, I designed it.
What? I need to hear this is magic. I need to hear all about this. Like start with how. Like, how did you figure this out? Like, what kind of programming went to this that it can figure out how to perfectly balance a card? My mind is blown.
Okay, well, this is really relatively simple compared to what we actually do for the oil industry and the power industry. Those are complicated sort of things that we do. This was basically emulating a set of rules that Carl gave me and saying, okay, what are all the various parameters that we have to track, and then how do they interact with one another? It was I don't know how to explain how you program something. It's basically you sit down and make it function. And it's in Visual Basic is the program that we use to build it in. That's the language that we use. But I'm looking at all the comments. Right?
These comments are cracking me up. This one made me real happy.
He is. He's the first Cybermancer. He's the original Cybermancer.
Yes, 100%. And Brian, I agree. This is some next level stuff because my mind is blown right now. And obviously, this whole team is just full of geniuses. Your family, so smart. Every single one of you. I can't. I'm over here with my theater degree and selling cars, and I'm oh, I don't know. It's amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. So Muncie, when they brought you onto the team and you kind of were looking around seeing, okay, like they have this awesome game and I want to help them get it out there, what were some of the steps that you took to see where you needed to be and how to get there?
Well, something that we did notice from everyone who saw the game was the reaction was always very positive. They loved the game, they loved the art, and even before they played it, they were very excited to see how it would turn out. But of course, this was only in a very closed circle of people. So I thought, you know what, we need to start getting you on social media. And for some reason, I guess maybe my generation has an easier time than my dad or my uncles at figuring out how this stuff works. So I just took whatever millennial knowledge was imprinted in my brain from birth. And
it's magic.
So yeah, that's kind of been the process. And we're slowly but surely growing, and we do love all the comments that we've gotten from people throughout these last few weeks. The backers, the people who follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and it's great to see it just expanding and growing to everything we think it could be.
Yeah, I mean, you got 12 days to go, and you've got 50 backers already. That's awesome. That's a lot of backers. How'd you get so many backers?
I think most of those are friends and family, and the people that Muncie was able to get through the social media.
Right.
We were a little bit hesitant about launching when we did because it was right about the time that everything started to come apart in terms of the quarantine and people losing their jobs and stuff. So it was kind of a question mark for us whether we should launch or not, but we decided to do it, and we're not as thrilled with the numbers as we thought we were going to be, but we've learned an incredible amount from the experience. If it doesn't fund on this go round, we've learned so much about what to do the next time, and I think having brought Muncie in so late was our major mistake, because if we had her working on this months before, we would have had many more followers going in, which I think is the key to a successful Kickstarter campaign. You have to have the people in place before you launch, and
that's very true. Hold on, my cat is going to knock over your guys' game.
We're totally fine with that. He can take it if he wants it.
Yeah, the game is popular with cats. I don't know.
She's pretty cute. Hold on, she makes an appearance in every video. Come say hello, you.
Oh, we love her.
She's so precious. Okay, can you go find Daddy now and leave me alone? Thank you.
That's a beautiful cat.
Thank you. She's named after Lieutenant Uhura from Star Trek.
Oh, nice choice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love it. She's cute. She's funny. But she has to be in everything. Every video she's in. I'm like, okay, don't knock it over. And then I lost my train of thought on what we were talking about. Oh, so yes, going into Kickstarter, it's definitely helpful to have, people that are interested and already there kind of supporting you. So like Brian and I on our first Kickstarter also learned that lesson, and then we brought it back out and it was fine. And we got our goals, but I think everyone kind of ends up having that realization at some point, and you're like, oh yeah, like I really have to build a community.
Yeah. Well, one thing that worked against us was we had sent out a lot of prototypes to different people that were going to go out and expose it at local game shows. Game stores and things like that. And then everybody went on lockdown.
Yeah, so that doesn't help.
They were stuck at home with a game they couldn't share with anybody. So I think that was probably the main thing that worked against us. Yeah. That would have brought in a lot more people, because we found that people who actually play the game and have their hands on it and get to see it always have a really positive reaction to it. And not being able to share it with people right before launch, I think really hurt us. But it was the right thing to do. People needed to stay home, keep themselves safe, and so it's unfortunate, but that was what had to happen. So so that's.
I mean, we went through the same thing. We get it.
Don't launch during a pandemic.
There's some lessons to be learned here. Don't launch during a worldwide pandemic. But you guys hit on the major problem of we didn't bring enough followers. So what we're doing today is critical to reaching out. Monsi's been helping us. Carl and I are not the most social guys by nature. Technical, yes, not necessarily very social. And so we thought we had enough followers, but when we reached out to some other experts, they're like, that's just not enough people to bring to a campaign. And so once again, this was, while a little painful, it's been a learning experience, and hopefully we'll carry all this forward and continue over the coming months to reach out to our followers and to answer these questions that keep coming up, and certainly try to get people involved and to back the program or to back the project long in advance of the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting people that are engaged and involved and excited for it is super crucial. And it's not something that I knew. It took me a while to get that through my head. I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. You got to do that. And I don't know, it didn't get in there.
Yeah, I think we're a little naive. I think we went in with the concept if you build it, they will come. And you have to build your own community. You can't depend on Kickstarter to promote it or do things for you. So, and like I say, if we had the opportunity to go out to the game stores and share it with people and get people excited about it, as you play it and see it, I think it would have been a different story. But unfortunately, we weren't able to. So, have
you guys ever gone to any of the gaming cons?
We haven't. That was another plan, but I think that's probably something we need to do before.
Yeah, most stuff is being canceled or pushed back right now. But if you haven't gone, just go for funsies.
We've been.
It's a great experience. There's so many different games you can go see, and people are super welcoming and opening and helpful. And you have people that are showing how to play games. There's a whole room where people are just play testing games, and everyone's super welcoming. It's great.
We're actually going to be at Comic-Con this year.
San Diego?
San Diego, which is where we're from, by the way.
Oh, very cool. I thought I saw today that it was canceled, but I don't know if that was accurate. It could have been hashtag fake news. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So we're going to Origins, which is here in Ohio, and I think we're going to be going to PAX U, that's in Philadelphia in November. So, they're fun. I love it. I like talking to, obviously, I'm chatty, so I like talking to people, and it's a great place to go and talk to people.
Yeah.
And everybody's willing to talk to you.
It really is amazing how open and helpful board game people are, because I think they love the hobby so much. They're just into anything they can do, talk about games, play games, share games, get together. It really is one of those social activities that people just really, really love. I'm just amazed at the positivity of board game people in general.
Yes, and I love that you described it as a social game, because it really is just a social thing that helps tie us all together. And what I love is we're all from very different walks of life, but yet we're still connecting over this beautiful, amazing game that you made, which is awesome, because otherwise I never would have connected with you guys. We probably would never talk, because we'd be like, what do we have in common? I don't know. Brian confirmed that Comic-Con was canceled, and then Alex had asked a question which I thought would be interesting. Tell us about your history in board games and why you like them so much. That's a great question, and I want to hear about it.
Okay. In my case, when I was working in education, it's very, very rewarding to work with people. And that was what my job was, working with people, constantly training and observing and working with people. And as rewarding as that can be, people can be very tiring. They can drain you. So I had a 2-hour commute in the morning, because it's Mexico City. It's just, it's crazy. And then a 2-hour commute in the afternoon after working an 8-hour day of working with people. When I got home, it was like, don't talk to me. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. And I would just love to get in front of my computer and put on my headphones and just lose myself in a fantasy world and not have to, deal with other people. And after I started working for Woody, because I was working at home, all of a sudden I went from, constant social interaction with other people to working on a computer with no interaction, or almost no interaction, except maybe through Skype or something. So I quickly fell out of love with computer games because every time I sat down, it just felt so isolating.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like I'm not connecting with anybody. I'm not having what I'm used to in terms of social interaction. So that was when I started getting into board games. And it was lucky for me that it was about the time that, designer board games were really taking off and exploding in popularity. And that really scratched the itch for me as far as being able to have that kind of social situation. Because with board games, you have to interact with other people. You have to get together with other people. You have to sit around and talk. And depending on the kind of game you play, you're working together, you're working against each other. I just absolutely fell in love with the whole thing. And like Muncie said, I just went nuts. I started buying games and oh, we got to try this one. We got to try this one. And I drove my poor family nuts. It's like, Dad, enough. But yeah, I just fell in love with the whole thing. And after playing so many games and just being sort of my go-to after work activity, I just decided maybe I could try my hand at this. Maybe I could create something that would bring that same feeling to other people.
That's awesome, and that's beautiful that you want to share that. Okay, so listening to you talk and how excited you are, I would like to know, what is your favorite game that you've played?
My favorite game, I think, would probably be War of the Ring.
Okay. Muncie, what's your favorite game?
It's a little bit hard to land on just one. I think through the years, it's maybe changed a little bit in terms of maybe when we started out, I would gravitate more towards the simple ones, but now I'm starting to enjoy the heavy, long games. But maybe if I had to choose one, I think I would say Ticket to Ride. It's just so fun and entertaining and just gets you thinking enough without draining your energy.
All right. Ticket to Ride is awesome. If you like Ticket to Ride, you might dig on Tour. It's a roll and write where you have a map and you are laying out where your band is going on tour. So it's kind of similar in you're trying to connect stuff. It's super fun if you can get your hands on it.
We'll definitely look into
that.
They have
an app for that for the iPad, actually. I have that.
They do?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, it works perfectly. It's really
The internet is amazing.
Yeah, it's a good game.
I love it. Woody, what's your favorite game?
Well, it's almost obligatory here to say Cybermancy. But I think probably my favorite games recently have been it's Magic the Gathering. My son and I played it, and it was sort of I got into it and bought a few thousand cards, and so that was fun. That's
Magic. Awesome. There, I love it. Alex says his favorite is Dracula. Is that a game?
I think he means
it's kind of popped up over time. I don't know. So Rick asks, where did you get the inspiration for the characters? All of them look awesome and powerful, and they do.
Well, as I said, the humans are actual people from history. I just had to research them, and the undead, I just made them up. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. I just said, what would be some interesting undead characters, and then based on their professions, I gave them a name. Tom Brady was kind of an obvious one for a football player. So once I had the different professions, I just thought of a name that kind of went with it. And the interesting thing was, I didn't give the artists any other guidance than the name and the profession. They were the ones that came up with the actual visual images of the creatures. It was amazing. We get them back, and I go, "This is perfect. This is exactly what I was thinking." So, a lot of the credit for the visual image, it has to go to our artists. They just took what I created, and then translated it into a visual medium, and it was. They did a fantastic job, I think.
They did. That's awesome. I love it. It was pretty cool. They did a great job. So my next question would be, what do you guys have planned for the future for C Forever Games?
Well, obviously we're gonna look at doing another project release for Cybermancy when we build a much greater community and give Muncie a little bit more time to work her magic.
She'll work all the millennial magic for you. Yeah,
she and Wayne seem to be helping us out a great bit in moving towards having an actual community. So that's what's on the horizon for us, and then supporting the game with expansions. But we're also branching out. We've got a number of creative people that are working for the company. So we have, I don't know if you guys played Dungeons and Dragons or some variant thereof. We'll be putting out modules. I also wrote a program that manufactures modules, so you just have to kind of cut and paste your text into it, but it does all the typesetting and the placing of the maps and pictures and so on. So we'll be releasing some of that, and then there's a couple of other games that we've got on the sort of in the. I don't want to talk project speak, so what we're looking at is trying to define what the next game that we release will be. Well, we'll have a couple of them working at the same time. The game that Carl was talking about that Adam had designed is a complicated and expensive game to build. So it would be a major project. There's a lot of components to it, and it's a complicated game. It would require a great deal of art. But some of the other stuff, years ago we talked about releasing our own role-playing game, and it's an interesting concept that I don't know. We should probably talk about it quite yet until we actually get it off the drawing board. But it's its own role-playing game, using a D20 system, but it's really an amazing thing, and it was designed by somebody else, not part of the team. A guy that we've been role-playing with since I was 17.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it. You guys have plans. That's awesome. It's really cool. I love it. And I love that it's like such a family thing. This is beautiful. I love it. It's awesome. Oh, Adam says spoilers. Spoiler alert. Well, thank you guys so much for chit-chatting with me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who popped on and checked it out. Head on over to Kickstarter. I'm going to put this in the comments here, and check out their Kickstarter. Show them some love, some support. And yeah, if you guys have one last thing that you want to plug before we let everyone leave us. Nope, guess not. I mean, we're talking about this, so go check it out.
To start.
And I already plugged it for you. Go check it out.
Yeah, and we just want to say thank you so much for the awesome review that you gave us. That preview is excellent, so it really does
You're very
show
welcome.
what we wanted people to get from the game. And thanks for having us here and letting us talk about our cool project.
Oh, you're so very welcome. I had a lot of fun. This was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for checking out, and everyone have a great evening and a safe one, and we'll talk to you again, Facebook.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.